Welcome to Module 3, where we will discuss more on data. Data in programming is basically all the memory or values that a program will store, add, remove, or utilize. So far, we understand how to manually write out what we want our console to say using the right method. However, what would we do if we wanted something more advanced? For example, what if we wanted to ask a user some information, store that information, and then output something new based off of whatever the user had inputted? This could be a calculator program or even a big program, but in any scenario, data would be involved. The first thing we should talk about are variables. Variables are a named memory location that can hold different values at different times. This value can change depending on the circumstance unless we tell the program it is a constant. Now, constant is a variable that's value cannot be changed after the program compiles, but it can be changed while you're still in the development or while programs are not running. You can manually change the constant value. So what's the difference between a constant variable and a literal variable? Well, an example would be, if I inputted a user to give me a number, I have my variable name, num1, and equals whatever the user tells me it should equal. I prompt the screen and I say, give me a number, and they input 4. That num1 variable now equals 4. Then I ask the question again, give me another number, and they prompt 3. Well, now num1 now equals 3. So that variable now has changed the values at least twice. And now it will continue to change until I'm done asking the user what number they would want it to be. Now, if I made num1 a constant variable and I assigned it to 0, then no matter how many times I ask the user what you want that number to be, it's going to be 0 no matter what, because it remains constant. This is very useful if you have some sort of program that involves maybe sales tax, hourly rates, or of a value that you don't want changed because it's supposed to be the same value for any scenario. Now, data types tell the program what the format and size of the variable should be, and data types can include strings, integers, doubles, etc. But we're only going to talk about 4 main types, which are integer, double, string, and character. A placeholder consists of a pair of curly braces and a number that starts at 0. That indicates the position of the variable in a list that follows the string. Placeholder goes inside the literal string or inside the quotation. So let me give you an example. Here's our data type integer, our variable num1, and that's assigned the value of 2. And then here's an example of some code, console.writeLine, and then the literal string is what we call the information inside the quotation. So the literal string says the number is placeholder 0. Now, after the quotations, we put a comma, and that is where the list begins. Of the variables in this scenario, there's only one variable, so there's only one variable in our list, and it represents placeholder 0. So the output would say the number is 2, because instead of it outputting this placeholder 0 information, it just outputs whatever the value of this variable is. But what if we had more than one? Well, look at this scenario. If you had 2 integer variables, one named age, which equals 27, and one named graduation year, which equals 2004. By the way, graduation year is in camel casting. When we do the console.writeLine, I am placeholder 0 years old, and I graduated in placeholder 1. You notice that I put age first in my list, and then I put graduation year, so there's 2 variables in my list. Age represents placeholder 0 because everything starts at 0, and then graduation year represents placeholder 1. Now something to remember when you deal with placeholders, you have to have as many variables as you have placeholders. There will be an error if I had placeholder 0, but then had 2 variables. It would be an error if I had placeholder 0, placeholder 1, but only had age represented inside. If I wanted to use age twice, I would type age, comma, age. So keep that in mind. It's just a placeholder for any particular variable that you assign it to. The declaration, and you've seen this in the previous slide, is when a statement names a variable and reserves storage or memory. You can declare as many variables as you want of the same type on the same line, or you can space out or separate them. And this is what that means. If I had three variables, num1, num2, and num3, and I wanted to declare them all as integer, I could space them out by typing int number1, next line int num2, next line int num3. Or I could just do it on one line. I could say everything on this line will be data type integer, and then I could space out my variables separated by commas, and then still end with my end statement. So that is a more clear way to do it if you had more variables. Otherwise, it's more organized to have them spaced out, because then, at that point, at least you can put commas in there to explain. Okay, this number's for this, and this number's for that, etc., etc. Do what you want and use them effectively if you see that one works better for you than the other. And this is how it would look inside an actual program. You have your class with your curly braces. Inside the class, you have your main method with curly braces. And then inside that main method, here's a declaration occurring in num1 equals 2. And then it's being used in the console.write line to display num1 to the screen.